Good morning, guys. So today we're going to finish off week 8 and go over that material. We're going to pick up on cognitive development. So, just as a reminder, as children progress, once they are born and they have those initial reflexes, which basically revolve around making sure they're able to eat, after that point in their lives, we start to see rapid development basically from infancy throughout toddlerhood, and then it starts to slow down as they get a little bit older. So here are some cognitive milestones that you will see your baby go through or progress through, and things that are necessary and expected for them to meet. So something like object permanence, or this idea that they understand something exists long after it is out of their eyesight. And toddlers start to understand that people will exist when they can't see them, or mommy and daddy can go to work and they will come right back. This is something that they don't understand until they're much older. And as you can see, through each different phase of their lives, their cognitive skills develop. What we know is that little children think qualitatively differently than adults. So the way that they think and the way that they process information is much different than the way that you or I process or understand information. And it becomes more and more mature as they get older. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is something called attachment. So, attachment is this secure relationship that you have with your child, or a child has with its parent. So, we're going to talk about different studies with attachment and how attachment can affect your life way after you are someone's child. So, we're going to start with this experiment by Harry Harlow. There's also going to be a question about this on your midterm, so I want you to look over it. Basically what he did is he did many different iterations of this experiment. So the one that we're going to talk about here is the one that's on your slide. So he separated mothers and baby monkeys from each other. Okay, and he presented them with two surrogate mothers, or basically two backup mothers. So you can see in this picture, this is like sort of a fuzzy mother. So it looks like a wire, but there was like a little fuzzy piece of material over the wire. And then he presented a completely wire mother. Now, the wire mother, or the mother made of mesh, could dispense milk. So basically there was a bottle sticking out of the mesh mother. And I'm going to let you watch a video so that you can actually see the experiment. And then one was made from cloth. So this is like just a soft material like what you see pictured here. The monkey spent much more time clinging to the cloth mother instead of the mother that provided the milk, which was pretty wild at the time. At that point in time, they thought that babies loved mothers because mothers provided breast milk. But what we know is that more than even nourishment, babies seek comfort and closeness. That's why now the way that we handle preemies is much different than the way that we used to. We try to spend as much time holding preemies as possible, or babies that are underweight, because we know that skin to skin is going to help them gain weight a lot faster and leave the hospital earlier. It's actually recommended. So that's one part of attachment. So we're going to talk about another part of attachment. This is something called the secure base. So Bowlby, who is an attachment researcher, basically said that when you have a secure attachment with your caregiver, you use them as a secure base to explore and kind of understand the world around you. The caregiver gives the child a sense of security and allows them to kind of reach out and experiment with the world while they know that that person is there for them and they have a place to come home to. So what makes someone a secure base for their kid? So they have to be responsive to the child's physical, social, and emotional needs. So what do people mean by responsive? What that means is that you know what your child wants. So sometimes when you hear a child crying or whining, you may not know, if you're not their parent, exactly why they're crying. But a lot of times parents will be able to tell, okay, they want a bottle, they want a hug, nothing is really wrong with them. Maybe they just need to cry to kind of, and they need a cuddle, but nothing, they don't really need anything, right? Just kind of being able to parcel out what they're asking for and what they want. And then mutually enjoyable interactions is exactly what it sounds like. So this is you getting along and doing positive things with your kid. Okay, so let's talk about the strange situations test by Mary Ainsworth. This is a super common test. It's been done in laboratory settings for a long time now. It's even done in different mental institutions. It's still being done right now. So it used to be done with only the mother, because mothers were generally primary caregivers, but it can be done with anyone. So the infant and the mom are placed together in a room full of toys, like just a fun place for the kids to be. And then a stranger enters the room, someone the child has never interacted with before, and then mom leaves. And then afterward, mom comes back Now, usually when mom leaves the room and she leaves a toddler with a stranger, the baby will cry. This is usually about 18 months when attachment is really, really strong. The baby will likely cry, and then they have to see how the child reacts when the mother comes back into the room. So, how the child reacts when the mother comes back into the room tells us what type of attachment style that particular person has. So, we're going to go over these different styles or types of attachment. So, there are 4 different ones that we're going to review. So let's start off with the most common response is secure attachment. So this is when mom leaves the room and she comes back and the child is comforted by her presence. They cry when she leaves, and when she's in the room, they use her to explore as a secure base, which is what Bowlby talked about a couple of slides ago. The next one is avoidant. So this is when they don't use mom as a secure base. They may go a little bit too far from mom. And when she leaves, they don't really care. And when she comes back, they may show a positive reaction or they may not. Okay, and I'm going to attach a video so you can kind of see kids engaging in these behaviors. Then you see resistant. I'm sure some of you have seen this one before. This is when mom leaves, okay? They're very, very clingy. Mom leaves the room, and then when mom leaves the room, they're extremely disturbed. So they're going to be crying, like just inconsolable. And then when mom comes back and mom tries to comfort them, it's going to be difficult for her to basically bring him back down. He is going to continue to cry and usually have a hard time calming down. This could be because mom responds inconsistently. And when you respond inconsistently, it's difficult for them to know that you're going to be there. Disorganized is when this is usually a sign of abuse. So their behavior is really odd. So when mom leaves the room, they might run around, they might behave in an erratic fashion, they might shake and rock. And then when she returns, she's no comfort. So they may not even want to go in her arms. So for example, mom might pick them up and they might literally push their body away from hers. And these can be used to determine how the mother and child interact when they're not in the presence of the researcher or the clinician. So basically, how is their attachment? How is their relationship? And this is interesting and concerning because often these attachment styles remain into adulthood. So if you have a secure attachment in childhood, it is easier for you to have a secure attachment with your romantic partners and other people in your lives, your friends, other relationships. But if you develop an insecure attachment, you often take that style into adult relationships and you have to relearn or change your particular attachment style. And you could even lose secure attachment if you have poor adult relationships. So what's interesting about these things is that folks often keep these styles long after childhood. So that's why we want to understand. So let's talk about some other things which can contribute to your sense of self. And one of those things are going to be parenting styles. So I'm going to review the different types of parenting styles and how they might affect a child. So we have 2, and I want you to make sure you don't get these confused because they will be on your midterm: authoritative and authoritarian parenting styles. So authoritative, all right, this is going to be when you are very consistent, but you still express warmth and affection, and you will talk to your child about why the rules are in place. Okay, authoritarian is still very consistent, except they are more concerned with conformity, and they are less likely to express warmth and kind of talk to their child about why they are receiving something, why they have a certain punishment. Permissive is essentially when you just let your kids do whatever they want. You tend to not use punishment. There are not very many rules. They are essentially allowed to do what they want. And then uninvolved is very close to neglect. So this might be like you don't know where your child is at a certain time. You may not require them to wash themselves regularly, for example, and just kind of really letting them take care of themselves. So let's talk about ways that you can identify these different styles and kind of have an example of each. So if I tell my child, I have toddlers now, but let's say that later on in life, my child asks me to go to a sleepover and she says, can I go to so-and-so's house? And I tell her no. And she's like, why? And I tell her, no, you can't go because I said so. What type of style would that be? Authoritarian. Okay, because I have rules and I'm not explaining why. I'm not trying to involve her in that decision or talking with her about it. So let's try a different one. Can I go to the sleepover? No. Why? because I don't know Susie's parents and I need to know Susie's parents for a year and I need to have gone to their house before until you can go to sleepover at their house. Once all of those things are met, we can talk about you going to a sleepover again. But right now you can't go, and that's why. What would that be? Authoritative. You still have this same, very consistent demands being delivered. The difference is here, I'm involving the child and giving her an explanation as to why she can't get what she wants. Doesn't mean she gets what she wants. I'm just involving her and discussing it with her. And then permissive might be, sure, you could go to Susie's house. That's fine. That's what you want to do. Uninvolved might be the child, I call around to find my child and realize that they're at Susie's house. See the difference? Now, parenting styles are important, just like attachment. But one of the things that we don't talk about often is how parenting styles and attachment can be influenced by the child's temperament. So all of us have a general temperament when we are born. That means that we have innate traits that kind of influence how we interact with the world around us. So some babies have an easy temperament. That means that they are good at regulating their emotions. And these babies who have this easy temperament tend to be easier for parents to raise. And so parents tend to have better attachment to these children. And they also tend to have a more authoritative parenting style. When you have a child with a difficult temperament, often the attachment to these children is less secure and they're more likely to have a different parenting style, more authoritarian. It doesn't mean that parents can't parent in an authoritative way with these kids. It just means that sometimes it takes a little bit more effort than if you had a child with an easier temperament.